Welcome to Making Space For, the podcast where we embark on a journey to simplify, organize, and prioritize our lives. I'm your host, Paige Rabin, and each episode will explore the art of intentional living, helping you make room for what truly matters. In a world filled with constant noise and distractions, it's easy to find ourselves surrounded by things that don't contribute to our happiness or well-being. Making Space For is your guide to decluttering not just your physical space, but also your mind and soul. We'll dive into practical tips on downsizing, right-sizing, and the transformative power of letting go. Whether you're starting a cluttered closet, pondering legacy planning, or seeking the elusive balance between work and self-care, this podcast is your sanctuary for inspiration and actionable insights. Join us as we feature experts, share personal stories, and explore the profound impact of intentional living. Together, we'll navigate the journey towards a simpler, more fulfilling life. One where you have more of what matters and less of what doesn't. So are you ready to make space for the life you've always wanted? Let's dive in. This is Making Space For. Well, before we dive into today's episode, a quick shout out to our flagship company, A Move Handled with Care. As Denver Metro's premier senior and specialty move management expert since 2007, we've mastered the art of downsizing, right-sizing, organizing, and every step in between. From packing and moving to unpacking and staging, our experienced staff represent all stages of life, offering a compassionate touch to what matters most to you. So, if you're looking to make a seamless transition while keeping what truly matters in focus, trust A Move Handled with Care. Visit us at amovehandledwithcare.com or on Facebook or LinkedIn to discover the difference. Let's continue making space for the life you deserve. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this very first episode of Making Space For podcast. I'm your host, Paige Rabin, and today is a really special one because we're diving deep into the heart of it all. Joining me is not only my business partner, but the co-captain of this crazy journey we're on, Sierra Olmstead. Today's episode is entitled Making Space For Our Story. Why? Well, because it's about time you get to know the dynamic duo behind the scenes, us. So grab a cup of coffee, find a comfy spot, and get ready for some laughs, insights, and maybe a few surprises. Today is all about making room for the tales that shaped A Move Handled with Care and why our belief in putting people first is at the core of everything that we do. So stick around as we share our journey, our values, and a few fun facts you probably didn't know about us. This is Making Space For Our Story. Let's do this. Okay, we're doing a podcast. A little crazy, isn't it?
It is, yes. We've evolved.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've been talking about this for a while now, so it's good that we're just finally jumping off and going to get into some content and really hopefully just connect with people on a different level. And, you know, we've talked about it for a while that downsizing for us is more than it's more than the stuff, right? It's the mindset, it's the emotions and all the things that go into it. It's more than just the stuff. It's everything that goes around it. So I'm super excited.
Yeah. No, I'm super excited too. And I think that's just it, is downsizing is not something you do in a day and you just deal with your stuff and then you're done. It's really a lifelong process that we all go through, whether we are starting our families, we're in the middle, we've become empty nesters, now we're don't have our kids in the house and we're starting that next stage, or we're retiring. You downsize all throughout all your life.
Yeah. Well, you just mentioned family. So I guess I think that's the big thing is let people get to know who we are. So Sierra Olmstead, tell us about you.
So I'm Sierra Olmstead, and obviously the co-owner of A Move Handled with Care. And a little bit about myself. So I'm a Colorado native. I was born and raised in Littleton, went to Littleton High School, and then left and went to Baker University in Kansas for a little bit. Needed to get out of Colorado to realize how much I actually really love this state and never wanted to leave. And yeah, so my husband and I, we live in Centennial. I have 3 kids. I have a 10-year-old boy, I have an 8-year-old daughter, and a 5-year-old daughter. So I'm just now kind of coming to that sweet spot of everyone's in school and doing well. And I'm kind of loving life a little bit because it's a little bit more freedom, not so much having to do everything for my kids, but there's still a lot to do. And yeah, but I love what Colorado has to offer. As I said, we realize that this is where we want to be. And, we really enjoy our family skiing and just enjoying those outdoor activities. And obviously, downsizing is a huge passion of mine. And like I said, I'm constantly doing it. Every kind of quarter, I find myself getting into this, as my family would call the white tornado, and just kind of ripping through my house and starting to
For
clean out
sure.
everybody's stuff, kind of dealing with mine last, but kind of getting through everything else that everyone's doing. So I'm super excited to be doing this with you. And yeah, let's hear a little bit about you, Paige.
So I am not a Colorado native. And in fact, people ask me all the time where I'm from, and the answer is nowhere. I was an Air Force brat. I was born, my dad was an officer in the Air Force. And so we were nomads from the start. I've never known not moving in my life. So it's kind of interesting that full circle now when my family laughs that this is the business that I'm in because this is how my life started. So yeah, I was a nomad. We kind of moved all over. I was born in New York, and then we bebopped to Oklahoma, and we went to Iowa. I would say most of my family's from the Iowa, Minnesota kind of area, but no one lives there really much anymore. But I guess that's kind of where I spent a lot of my childhood. And then my dad worked for American Airlines, so we were based out of Dallas, and so that's where I guess I went to high school and did a lot of my growing up, but I wouldn't call it home. I don't really have one. My parents don't live there anymore. My sister does. But then I came to Colorado for my undergrad. I went to Colorado State University. And by trade, I'm a music therapist, which sounds also crazy when you think about all the weird positions and things that I've done. But yeah, I was a practicing music therapist for 12 years. I left Colorado and went to Arizona, and then I went to southern New Mexico where I met my husband and had my two kids. So currently I have a 12-year-old daughter, and I have a almost next week, he will be 11-year-old son. And so, yeah, but even that, we didn't stay put there, but for 7 years. And then we came back to Colorado for me to pursue my master's, thinking that I was going to end up teaching and kind of keep going and diving deeper with music therapy. And but now here I'm doing this, so it's just kind of all over the place as well. But we're a super active family. We love to be outside. We love Colorado. I think this is definitely going to be home for us. We bought our forever home about a year ago, and so we just love it here. We're in the Parker area, so Sierra and I do not have an office. Our office is where our feet are. And so I'm in Parker, she's in Centennial. Our office is just wherever our clients are. So that's kind of where we are. We're super busy. My kids are both involved. My daughter's in competitive volleyball. My son's in competitive basketball. So that keeps me busy in my spare time. But yeah, that's just kind of where life took us, is here in Colorado, and just we love Denver.
Yeah. No, and boy, am I glad that it really did, because I think this one big part of this company and just where we're at really stems around our partnership and how organically it really grew. Um, I started in senior living, and kind of one of my first jobs out of high school was doing marketing and sales in a senior living community. And in that process, it really taught me a lot, not only about seniors, but realized kind of, hey, I always wanted to be a business owner, and I knew that. And it led into me meeting Sharon and Gail, who were the original founders of A Move Handled with Care. And a couple years into it, I think it was actually 5 years total that I had been at Claremont Park doing marketing and sales. And they approached me and said, hey, we're starting to retire. We're starting to think about, do we really want to keep doing this, or do we want to sell, or where we're at? And I think you'd be great at it. And so, I jumped in and I said, yeah, hey, I always want to be a business owner, and I think this is what I want to do. So I jumped in and I, started this business, or took over the business more. And then it evolved because I was doing everything. And then I realized I couldn't do everything. My daughter was just my third daughter was just born at the time when I realized I needed an office assistant. And that's where Paige, you came in. And
Well,
it was amazing.
because you
Yeah,
started,
good.
well, you bought into A Move Handled with Care when you were pregnant with who?
Well, I was pregnant with my middle daughter, so my
Right.
10-year-old now.
So then I
It
came
was,
on board in when Kelsey was born, and that was your third. And
yes.
so I every time I always know how what my anniversary is by how old she is because she her and I are in the same year. So we're spirit soul sisters because of that. But yeah, I mean, you came from
Yes.
senior living, so you inherently understand, senior living. I was in senior living. It's funny that you say you always, and I think, you came from a lineage of some entrepreneurs and people starting their own businesses. And
Hmm.
I did not. I did not ever think in a million years that I would own a business. If you would have asked me that probably 5, 6 years ago, I would have said absolutely not. But it's been one of the most rewarding things. And so that's kind of funny. But yeah, I was in senior living as well. I had bebopped. I'd worked with kids with neurologic impairments for so long, and then as I had kids, that time frame didn't work well for me, and so I kind of transitioned into working with older adults. And I really kind of found my stride working with as a music therapist with adults with Parkinson's disease. It's kind of near and dear to my heart. My grandpa had it, and my mom currently has Parkinson's. And so I was really tied to that. And then I started doing Alzheimer's and dementia care. And that's where I met A Move Handled with Care because I was working full time in a senior living community here in the Denver area when I kept seeing A Move Handled with Care come in. And I was just like, every time they came in and did a move, it just was this magical experience. It was this like it just felt like home. As somebody who worked there, it took the stress off of me, it took the stress off of our staff, it took the stress off of the family, it took the stress off of the resident. And then just for them to be able to like start living the minute they moved in was just such a magical thing. And I befriended the gal who I ended up taking her role. She came in, and every
Yeah.
time it was her and I would chat. And then I kind of one day kind of worked alongside of her, and she was like, "Hey, are you interested in a different career?" And I was like, "Actually, yeah, I am." So like all of that, is kind of water under the bridge. But I also think it's pretty fun because when I first met you for my interview, because we don't have an office, it was at the library. It was at the library, and you had your would have been then 2 year olds and your youngest strapped to you. And this was my interview. And I remember going, this is the job for me because at the time I had little ones too, a little older, but that were just kind of going through some challenging things too. And I was like, yeah, I want to be in a place where we have where you are a person first, and our culture really matters to us in our business. And we are fortunate enough to have a bunch of women and a few men every now and again, but we know that life happens and you got to take care of yourself and your family. And so I feel like we're all one big happy family. So that's kind of how our paths crossed. And we were so small. I mean, how many were there when I started? Four?
I mean, I think it was just me, Shanda, Shelly, and then a few like part-time assistants. So maybe four people
I
total,
think
if
it was
five, I think.
4. I mean, and I remember
Yeah.
like I wasn't in the office full time. I mean, maybe 15, 20
No.
hours. And then that 15, 20 hours just kept snowballing. And then it was 20 to 25 hours. And then it was 20 to 30. And then we were like, this is a full-time job. And then we're like, well, this is a little too big. And we just have grown organically. And I think that's what's been so fun is each of us has done every single role. There's not been one role we haven't done in our company because that's just how you are in a small business is everybody has to do everything and you're cross-trained in everything. And if you have to answer the phones, you do. If you have to go in the field, you do. And I think that's also been really neat because now that's not how we are. Like our culture now is you kind of come in and you have a
Right.
role, and it's just kind of weird to see that that's, kind of how it's transformed a little bit. But yeah, just kind of an interesting.
Well, I do love, and actually, I don't know why I didn't even think about this from the beginning, but that organicness of how our company is built is really, I think, speaks volume of where we're at today in this. Because if you think about it, like so I was in senior living, I was approached to buy the company. You were in senior living. We approached you to
Yeah.
come on board, and then you approached me, and like the partnership's just been amazing. And then we just poached almost 2 years ago our office gal out of senior living. And so I guess that it's that organicness that really I think speaks a lot of volumes to the growth and the health and how companies like this and just companies in general are able to continue on and not, I think when you try to mass produce and make a machine, it's just different,
Totally.
and we've always wanted to stay kind of that local, kind of homegrown kind of piece of it. So
I would agree with that. And I would say, the brand has been around since 2007, but I feel like the brand
mhm.
is just now starting to be that, I guess, be a brand where people know that. And I think that the name, while it's a mouthful, a move handled with care, it is exactly, we say it all the time. It says what we do. And I feel like that is absolutely how we treat our staff. It's how we treat our clients. It is definitely like that care and people first, for sure.
Yep, that's definitely what we've founded on, and what we continue to really create that culture. Even though our culture changes, that's kind of that foundation, that's the first part of our culture, is that care, that love, our little heart in the box. Like, it definitely, that's where we've started and continued.
Can you think of a story of maybe a client or an experience that we've had that like where you had maybe your personal aha moment of like, yep, this is what I was supposed to do?
I mean, yes, and it's kind of funny that I bring up the client was myself. I mean,
Hmm.
I had owned this company. Let's see, Kelsey was a year, so, or Lucy, if Kelsey was a year, I had owned the company for I think about 4 or 5 years at this point, and we were moving. And I thought, "Ah, no problem, I got this." But then in the end, I ended up hiring our staff, and they did all of our packing. We were doing this during Christmas. And so we literally closed the day before Christmas Eve, but then we didn't take possession of the house until the day after Christmas. And so, you got littles, it's Christmas time, it's supposed to be magical, you're supposed to do all this stuff. And so it's just, I had our staff come in and pack us. We put everything in the garage. And then the moving truck came the day, we went and stayed with our in laws over Christmas. And then we came back the morning of day after Christmas, and it was just Scott and I. And the moving truck came, and all the boxes came, and then our staff unpacked us. And so by the end of the day, after Christmas, when you're exhausted, I was settled. And I
Hmm.
literally remember looking around the house going, oh my gosh, we're moved in. Like, I didn't realize how invaluable our service was really until I experienced it myself. And it wasn't just one room, it was the entire house. Like, my kids, all their books were put away, their beds were put away, all their new toys that they got for Christmas were like out and they could play with them. And it made me realize how, when you try to do it all, because we were closing, we had Christmas,
Yeah,
and
I
then we
remember
were
that.
doing the move and the heavy lifting, like, I would have probably fallen on the floor crying because I would have been too overwhelmed to do it. And so the fact that I was able to focus on what I needed to, the closing, the Christmas, the kids, and just getting stuff here, then it really was absolutely invaluable. And that's when I realized this service is for everybody, because moving is the most, and I say this all the time, I hate moving. It's the most stressful thing ever.
Painful.
But when it's not my move, I will do it all day
Yeah.
long because it's not my emotions, it's not my stress, right? And so I can walk, we can be the duck on top smoothing through the water, and all of our staff's going like this underneath it
Totally.
because this is what we do. But like, when it's me, I was the duck, I was the feet, like, I can't do this.
Well, and
So
that's also interesting because, that time of year, many people don't know, but it can be sometimes the busiest time of year for us as a business because, for
mhm.
folks who are, we don't there's something about it, but sometimes the holidays, people's health deteriorate. There's more falls. You all have adult children that are coming home and they're like, oh my gosh, we got to get, mom and dad sorted out. And so it's a very busy time for us. And that was when you decided to move. So that's always interesting. And I have the same personal
Yes.
experience. I mean, way farther into my journey with our company too is, we just bought our house last September. And, I talk about this all the time, and my husband, he gets it, but he doesn't get it. And it was very fun for me. I didn't know that it was going to be fun, but like when we were moving, I was so crazy busy, fast and furious, because we were also very busy as Move Handled with Care. So I think I had very limited
Yeah.
staff that could help me. Um, because that wasn't probably the highest paying job at the time. But I paid them with probably like, I mean, lunch and things like that. But it was interesting because my goal was, this was kind of an interesting thing for me because my kids were older. So my daughter's was going into middle school this year, and my son was going to finish up elementary school. So a little interesting in the fact that they were excited about moving because they were really excited about the house, but they weren't excited because we're moving away from friends and we're switching schools eventually, and all that stuff. And so I told our staff, I was like, listen, the most important thing to me was when my kids get home from school, I want their rooms to be put together. I want the stuff hung on the walls. I want the beds made. I want it to look like their room. And everybody was like, yep. So everybody did that first. And it was so fun because, in Move Management, we get to do what we want to do. We load the truck the way we want to load it. We can prioritize what we want to prioritize. And based on our clients, well, in this case, everybody knew that that was most important. That was the first furniture off the truck. That was the first boxes off the truck because I said, I don't care if the kitchen's done, but I want their rooms to be done. And it was really fun because I had my old neighbor pick up the kids and brought them home. And she walked in and she goes, is this the same house? And I was like, yeah. And the kids went down and their rooms were so cool and the stuff was on the wall and they were so excited. It just made like the level of excitement fun. And then like my husband he just was like, I get it now. Like he wanted to micromanage and like he's going to tell everybody. I was like, you're not going to tell anybody anything. And so I think that's kind of fun in the fact that like he was like, I get it now. Like you don't have to micromanage it because someone else is. And in that case, it was me, which is a little more stressful, but it's that same, it's like we get to experience it. And we also know what it feels like to be on both sides of that experience of like, what does it feel like when it's all put together? The stress is limited. Like my boxes, Shanda came by that day to come check out my house and she picked up all the boxes with our van that same day. And Chad was like, and the boxes are gone? I'm like, and the boxes are gone. Bye. So that was really fun. But yeah, it's great that we both and experience that ourselves personally so that we can speak to it. And, it's worth every penny, every bit of effort. And we say that all the time. It's like the best gift you can ever give yourself is to let someone help you with some of the most stressful things in your life. And moving is on the top of the list.
Yep,
Sure.
exactly. Very true. Well, and I think it's funny how we always say this too in the background is like in that similar experiences, like haven't personally moved my family, you've personally moved your family, not just your immediate family, but parents, grandparents, things like that. And how
Yeah.
we both have said, we got to switch those roles because it is when it's your emotions, like it's just harder. And then you're dealing with your family, which then is just different. And so when you bring in a professional to do all of that work for you and then you focus on truly what's important, it goes so much smoother every time. And it is like it's absolutely invaluable. Like I would give my like left arm to our staff to move me and be like,
Yeah.
I will give you whatever you want because like you guys are amazing and you know how to
Yeah.
do this. And
Yeah.
it's the stress that you don't have of your own
Well, and
stuff.
our clients become part of our family, and I think that that's also what I love. I mean, as a therapist, there was so much of me that was like, am I going to give up this personal connection that I have with people?
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that
Mm-hmm.
no is the answer because there's so much personal connection in what we do. And not only with our staff who, we have a ball with, but our clients. And I'll never forget there was a client that, and I hope to have her on the podcast someday. I think I told you about her, but She was just an amazing, I mean, she was 92 years old, living by herself. Her spouse had passed away, and she was finally making the big decision to downsize and move into a senior living community that had, support and, things like that. And I'll never forget, you think you're going in, Paige Raven's going to go in and I'm going to be the expert and I'm going to tell her how it's going to go, and I've been doing this for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years at this point. And I walked in and she took me through her home, which was like a backwards in time, just amazing antiques. We connected over music. She was a pianist. We just had a wonderful time. And then I come to find out that she was an author. And we went downstairs and she had this big bookcase and they were all of her books. So all the books that she had written, but she had multiple copies of it. And she gave me two of them. And she told me which one to read in which order. And so anyways, we walked through the home and I, do my estimate and whatever. And we kind of, like we do, we're finished and we go home. And I brought her book home and I read her book and she talked about the house that I had just been to. And I remember calling you and I was crying on the phone and I'm like, oh my gosh, I get the house. I get why. I feel it in her. Like I feel why the piano is such a thing. I feel why, this meant so much. And she wrote this lovely book about her husband was sick and they knew he was dying. And so she basically was talking about this beautiful story about like coming to terms with that and how that changes your life. And it was just the best. And so I've like now paid that forward and I've given that book to a staff member. When they're done, I want them to give it to another staff member. But the personal connection we have with our clients, we think so much that we're the experts. And what we learn so many times is that they are the experts on all things in life and that we are learning every day from each other. And I love that piece of our legacy that we have in our company because it shows in everything in our interactions with people.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Well, and I think that's just the word, is that legacy, right? Like it's amazing because now you understand like what truly was important to her. And the piano, her being a pianist and her bringing the piano or not bringing the piano. And so I think that's the point of what we're trying to help our clients with in that emotional way is, what is that legacy that you want to leave behind? Is it the piano or is it the memory of the piano that you want to leave?
Yeah.
And how are we able to help you accomplish that?
Totally. And capture it. It doesn't, I think we say this a lot. It's not saying no, it's saying yes to the things that matter most, right? I mean, we're calling this podcast the Making Space For, and making space for is it's a mindset of it's not what you don't have room for, it's what you want to make space for. So I guess to you, like, what are some things either like through the business or even you personally, like, what are some things that you feel like are super important in like the way that we approach things to make space for?
Well, I think it's just that is that legacy. Like one thing that I've really learned over the last year and more so probably in the last 6 months or so in doing this is that we're always learning, we're always changing things. And I've realized for myself, like when we went to conference this last year and we heard that guy talk about being a minimalist, I came home and I realized that it's not about the stuff. It's about the legacy that we want to leave behind. But but then even deeper, like we need to tap into who we are. And it's helping clients to figure out like, hey, do you have 10 sets of china just because you were the one in the family that said yes to it? Or do you have 10 sets of china because that truly speaks to who you are and who
Yeah.
you want people to remember you by? And so I think it's helping people tap into that because it is like it's so emotional. Like when my grandmother passed away or before when she got sick, she was like, "Hey, I'd really, go through the house, see what you want." And I was like, "You know what? I remember your Christmas china. I really want that Christmas china." And she said, "Hey, and I'll give you the hutch with it." And I said, "Great." We took the hutch, we took the china. And then I realized like after she passed, had been years past, I was like, you know what? Like that china hutch really was kind of ugly. And I
Big and
really never
brown.
liked it, right? It was just big, it was brown, it was just bulky. And I was like, you know what? I realized I didn't ever like that, but I liked the idea of it because it was my grandmother's. And so I was able to get rid of it because I still held on to the memory, right? Like I still had the Christmas china. But then over the years, I then again realized I love this Christmas china because it was my grandmother's and it reminds me of my childhood, but I don't love 5 boxes of it. So I downsized it into 5 dessert plates. And I'm like, I still have that, but now I don't have this excess and this abundance. And that's really where helping our clients in that just are really held on to their stuff is like, is this really you though? And
Right.
is this really, do you want to be bogged down by this? Because hey, we can pack your 10, your 30 boxes of china and stack them in a closet and you'll never see them again because you're not going to
Yeah.
unbox it. Or let's just take a couple pieces to help remind you and help leave on that legacy. And so I think it's that is helping the clients walk through that emotional process of kind of finding themselves in this next chapter of their lives.
And embracing the things, the client that I worked with that she wanted to keep her Waterford and her daughters thought it was ridiculous. And I said, well, if you
Right.
want the Waterford, she ate a little scoop of ice cream, she said, every night when she went to bed. And I was like, why not use it every single day? And she was like, I've
Mm-hmm.
never thought of that. And she's like, yes. So she kept a few and she's like, every night I'm gonna have my scoop of ice cream out of my Waterford. I'm like, why not? You absolutely should. So it's, yeah, making space. It doesn't mean that it's not, you can't keep it. It's what do you keep? And that can be anything. It doesn't necessarily mean be the things, but what do you keep that makes you more of who you are and living your best and true life versus, the other way around, right? Like being
Right.
saddled down by the house that you can't function anymore because of this or that, or, dragging the box that goes with you from every house to house to house that you've never unpacked. Like, is that bogging you down, or is that the thing that really makes it shine? And so if you can have your scoop of ice cream in it every night, like that seems much more fitting.
Right.
Absolutely, I would agree. But back to us, just like personally and stuff, like tell me something random about Sierra Olmsted that many people don't know.
Oh gosh, there's a bunch of different. um, I think some people know, but I actually truly at heart, as much as I love downsizing and stuff, if I could one day own a ranch and just ride horses into the great wide open and kind of be like that, just be a farmer, go live like off the land and have those cows and those chickens and those horses, that would be absolutely amazing. Like it was funny when I was growing up, I always loved the rodeo and I loved the Wild West. And I thought, you know what, one day I'm gonna marry a rancher and I'm gonna own a ranch. And my husband's allergic to all things ranching. And so we're
But I
too
married a
rather
rancher.
throughout my kids. So I have like this jealousy of Paige. Like she married a rancher and she gets that experiences. And it really is. I think that's one thing that truly feeds my soul when I'm able to just be out there like on a horse with nothing around and just in that wide open spaces. It's really where I find a lot of peace and a lot of clarity for myself.
And another
So
fun fact
I
is
want your
that
life.
you're an avid roller skater.
Oh yes, I
She
did.
does
You
love
did
a
give me some
good,
roller
she
skates.
does love some good roller skates. Yes, that's fun.
Yep.
Yeah, I would say random things about me. I am an Enneagram 1. I think you are an Enneagram 7 is what we've decided, right? So it's funny. So
Mm-hmm.
if anybody knows
Yes.
anything about the Enneagram, how a partnership can work, you just put a 1 and a 7 together. And we just swap roles a lot. If we're kind of tied and related. So I tend to be the detail person. Sierra tends to be like the big picture person who can tell me to calm the heck down. But I also, I guess it's not as random, but I was a music therapist. I started playing the violin when I was 7 years old. I'm a convicted person. At 7 years old, you couldn't tell me that I wasn't going to play the violin, and I did. And I played it all the way through college. I can still play now. I don't play, um, as much as I would like to anymore, but I play piano and guitar, and I can play hand percussion. And I love to sing karaoke. Absolutely love it. Very favorite game of karaoke. And you can only go with a certain group of people and play this game because it falls flat is called Kamikaze Karaoke, where I pick your song. You can't go up there and say it's not your song. You got to go sell it. And then the audience votes on who sold their song the best. It's my favorite way to play. But yeah, I'm definitely a musician and an arts person at my core. And so I married a rancher and I have learned to embrace a bit more of that part of myself. Um, and it's fun. It's been super fun. I will say I go back to my husband's family brandings, and I'm totally happy with, making the lunch and like, having a nice beer after they're done. And I like to watch, but I don't get in the pins. I don't do it. My kids are starting to dive into it, which is fun, but
Yes.
I don't even want to do vaccines. I want to just take pictures and eat a donut.
See, that's where I'd be right in that pin, just
Yeah.
giving those vaccines and
It's
castrating those bulls and
yeah.
roller skating around
And
the
roller
arena
skating.
with my
Yes. That's
brother
funny. It was
on
hilarious.
my roller skates.
So I guess, I mean, we're busy moms. I guess we have hobbies. We don't do a whole ton of it, but I would say, like, how do
No.
you, a female entrepreneur, like, what are some of the things you may have to make space for in a different way to kind of balance being a business owner, a mom, a daughter, a friend? What are some things that you have to make space for intentionally in your life to keep that on the rails?
It's just that it's fun. I mean, back in the day when I first took this over, I did everything and anything. And I remember I was so lucky because I had just had Lucy. She was our middle daughter, and she was, gosh, like 3 months old. And so I found our neighbor actually ended up caring for her while I was working. And so some nights it was like, hey, I'm not going to be home till 6. Something happened. And she's like, hey, no problem. Got it. But what I learned from that is I can't, as an entrepreneur, you're always on, you're always thinking about your business. You're the person that everybody's calling when there's a problem, but you've got to learn to turn that off. And you have to turn that off because you get so burnt out, and you need to make time for fun. You just have to. I mean, my brother and I actually, Paige gave me some roller skates a couple years for my birthday, and my brother is a very avid roller skater too. And so we said, you know what, we're going to go to Skate City and we're going to do adult night. And heck, it doesn't start till 8 o'clock PM and get out till 10 o'clock PM on a Thursday night. But you know what, I'm just going to suck it up, and I'm going to be tired on a Friday, but we're going to do it. And it's those fun things. Like, I'm going to take the weekend and I'm going to go to my friend's ranch and I'm going to ride a horse, or I'm going to sit in my home with nobody here. I'm going to sit in a hotel room by myself for a weekend and read a book and just, turn it off. And that's really what you have to do. I mean, all those entrepreneurs out there, you've got to learn to turn it off at some point, to just have that R&R, to have that fun. And we're busy moms. We don't get a lot of time to ourselves, but just making that time is really where it's at. So it's just really that fun factor of keeping your life going as an entrepreneur and having fun in that. And I think that's where, this podcast that you really dove into, that we're going to start together, I think the goal that we have in this is we really want people to get a lot of different things out of this, not only downsizing your space and kind of dealing with your stuff and all of that, but also, how do you have fun in life, and how do you have fun doing this, and how do you not get burnt out by it? And we just really hope that through all of our episodes, and hopefully our future people that we interview in just different industries, we can really create a good wide range of tips and tricks and ideas and emotions that are gonna come up, and how to deal with those emotions, and how to just be able to start this process so that you're not bogged down by your stuff. Because really, that's where, going back to when we went to conference and heard the guy who became a minimalist with young children, and how freeing that was for him, and how his life really just changed because he downsized so much of his stuff, and where he's at right now. And I really hope that's what people get out of this in starting this podcast.
Yeah, we have an episode list of things and people. I mean, we've spent a decade almost, combing and creating relationships with people both near and far, like that are doing amazing things in their space. And I think that is one of the things that we love to do is we love to bring people together. We may not be the problem solver specifically for your issue, but we may know someone who can help solve your problem. And so I think that's kind of our goal in this podcast a little bit too, is to just, get all those lovely people together in one spot that can share what they're really known for and really great at. And hopefully, like every podcast, I listen to them, you listen to them, you're going to get a nugget. You're going to, we're learning. We don't know. We're not tech experts. We're not in a space where this is going to be amazing. There's probably going to be some bloopers here and there. But I think our goal is bigger than that. And I think I'm hopeful that that's where we can stay, is in a spot of like really just giving people, even if it's one little nugget that they can take and incorporate into their day, or something that it had never considered. There's a lot of people we've met and a lot of people that are on our list of people to interview that I'm really excited about, that it's stuff that I'd never considered until, like move management. What the heck is that? Most people don't even know what that means. And even people who think they know don't know until they've experienced it. And so how do we open people's minds to, like, if you don't know, how can we just kind of fill in the gaps? And then I guess the last question, or maybe not question, but just statement that I'd love for us to just kind of make is, what is our goal for a move handled with care and what that looks like in Denver?
Oh man. I mean, there's so many, right? Every year we're like, we're going to do this and this, but really I think that overarching goal that we always come back to is education, education, education. Because how many times do we run into people and they say, "Oh, I wish I would have known you." And so trying to figure out, how do we get in front of more of those people to let them know about our service? Our industry's been around for over 20 years now, but it's still such a small industry and it's still such a niche that we've lost a lot of clients because they just didn't know about us.
Yeah.
And I think both of our experiences in using our company personally for our personal moves really speaks volume to why everybody needs to know about us. Everyone knows about the moving industry, but not everyone knows about the move management and the hand holding that it comes with it and how invaluable we truly are, whether someone uses our company and Move Handled with Care or a different move management company. It's just that educational piece, getting it out there.
Agreed. And that's kind of where this whole thing kind of took legs from. And also just connecting, we're putting ourselves out there. We're being a little vulnerable. We're getting out on social media. And we've had a lot of feedback, which has been amazing, but it's a scary territory to walk into. So I hope, listeners, that you guys are kind to us and are patient with us and take the good and leave the bad. That's what we're going to do as well. And hopefully we will learn through this process and get some great content to people that I feel like we can connect with you, whether you are in the Denver area or not, because that is a limiting factor on one side. But I think that, the message and the education that we're talking about it's not specific to Denver. If you're lucky enough to live here, we'd be lucky enough for you to be one of our customers. But if that's not in the case, then we'd love for you to just learn something. And just so you know, move management, we're super passionate about. We do belong to a national association. It's called NASM. It stands for the National Association of Senior and Specialty Move Managers. And it's an amazing group of people that are doing very similar work to us. So if you are in a different destination, highly recommend you visit them at nasm.org. And that's NASMM.org. And you can search for any move managers who might be in your area, interview them, tell them what you're looking for, and hopefully you will find somebody with a great resource where you are. So because we just feel so passionate, we don't care if it's us. We just want you to use somebody or get connected with somebody who can help you if that's a need that you have.
Exactly. Yep.
So with that, we just finished our very first podcast episode, and we hope that you guys will join us again for our next episode. We look forward to creating space and making great memories.
Sounds good.
See ya.
Bye.
That wraps up our very first episode of the Making Space For podcast. A huge thank you to all of you, our cherished listeners. Your journey to intentional living begins with each small step, and we're honored to be a part of it. Before we part ways, a friendly reminder, if you're embarking on a move or seeking expert guidance in downsizing, remember a move handled with care here in Denver. With over 15 years of experience in senior and specialty move management, we're here to transform your transition into a seamless, stress-free experience. Visit us again at amovehandledwithcare.com for more information, and let's continue making space for the life you've always wanted. Until next time, stay inspired, stay intentional, and keep making space for what matters most.